This is the second of 2 tutorials covering the concept of source code escrow. Let's take a look at how the source code escrow relationship typically works. The government should analyze the market and companies who offer the software needed to determine if source code escrow should be required. We will cover the best way to analyze whether escrow should be required in a forthcoming section. If escrow is required, the government should make that requirement known in the RFP or RFQ issued for the software. A EULA, or End User License Agreement, is entered at the time of placing an order, and object code is delivered to the government for use in its production environment. At the same time the EULA is entered, the three-party escrow agreement is entered among the publisher, the licensee, and the escrow agent. The licensee is also known as the buyer of the software and the beneficiary in the escrow relationship. An escrow agreement may only be entered by the publisher of the software as the intellectual property owner. It is not advised to have a reseller enter an escrow agreement on behalf of the publisher. Once the escrow agreement is entered, the source code is delivered by the publisher to the escrow agent. At this time, and whenever updates or new releases occur to the software, the source code held in escrow should be tested to ensure it functions just as the licensee requires, so that if a trigger event occurs and the buyer gets the source code from the escrow agent, they can be certain that the source code they receive is a fully functional version. Typically, a third-party expert will need to be paid to perform this authentication test. The source code will be released to the licensee if a triggering event occurs. These triggering events should be clearly defined in the escrow agreement. Examples of an event that would trigger the release of the source code to the licensee include the filing of bankruptcy by the publisher, the ceasing of support by the publisher for the product used by the licensee, and other closures of business by the publisher. The licensee's right to the released source code is usually limited to a right to use the source code to maintain and enhance their production system and for no other purpose, such as offering it for sale to the public. Let's take a look at the contracts involved in source code escrow. Typically, there is a master escrow agreement entered to establish an escrow relationship. When software is deposited, a deposit addendum is then entered to describe and acknowledge the deposit being made. Be careful to not just accept an escrow agreement already established by a publisher with an escrow agent pre-selected. The terms for release may be written to favor the publisher and therefore unnecessarily constrain the licensee's rights to the source code. Typically, there are 3 costs associated with an escrow relationship. First, an escrow setup fee is payable to the escrow agent. Second, a fee is payable to test and validate the source code after it is deposited. This may be paid to a third-party firm. Third, an annual renewal fee is payable to keep the escrow account open and monitored. The fees can be shared between the publisher and the licensee. In some cases, it is better for the licensee to pay the fees to ensure the client relationship and allegiance of the escrow agent are solely aligned with their interests. To determine if an escrow relationship should be required when the government licenses commercial software, you should be asking the following questions. How long has the publisher been in business? How stable is the publisher's financial position? How long and successfully has the product been used for the same purposes expected by the government? What is the reputation of the product in the IT industry? What is the publisher's track record in supporting their products? Are there any indications that it may cease supporting the products required? When the publisher has been in business for a long time, has a strong financial position, and the product has a solid reputation in the marketplace, escrow will be less important. If a publisher has been in business for a short period of time, or has a weak financial position, or the product has a poor or inadequate track record, then the benefits of escrow may be more likely. Escrow is an often overlooked tool to help the government mitigate the risk of licensing commercial software. It should be considered in all situations and secured when the risk warrants its use. Thank you for viewing this tutorial. Please visit the DoD ESI website for more information and other videos in this series.